Om. 10 Commandments, the Principles of Arya Samaj, Part 25. The ninth principle, self greater and smaller. One should not be content with one's own welfare alone, but should look for one's own welfare in the welfare of all.
ॐ यस्मिन् सर्वाणि भूतान्यात्मैवाभूद्विजानतः तत्र को मोहः कः शोक एकत्वमनुपश्यतः.
For him to whom all beings are as his own self, the enlightened one, where is passion? Where sorrow? For him who has seen the one in many. Yajurveda. Self lesser and greater. In the ninth principle, individual good and social good are mutually reconciled. To the founder of the Arya Samaj, the two appear to be identical. Never be content with the promotion of your own welfare. Promote the welfare of all. For this alone can you really push on your own good. The altruistic outlook is found on minute scrutiny to be ultimately egoistic in the real sense. Only this form of egoism is the true one, the narrower view being simply illusory. A grade of individual happiness or misery depends upon the happy and miserable state of the society, in the midst of which the lot of the individual is cast. In a nation of slaves, the freedom of activity and growth of every individual will be handicapped. In a country where a majority of the population is of dullards, of intellectual imbeciles, the birth of geniusness is freak. The general level of the society in which one is born and has latter one's being is a potent factor in determining the intellectual and ethical level one will reach. The economic condition of the country are in a very large measure responsible for the prosperity and penury of its citizens. Wealth and poverty are relative terms. The poor citizens of a wealthy country may be on a par in the matter of their possession with even the favorites of nature in land accursed of the gods. How can you remain healthy? How can you keep your atmosphere clear of infection if your neighbors do not cooperate with you in observing the laws of health? That man is a social animal is true in all vital transactions of all vitally essential departments of human life. We rise and fall together. What has been emphasized in the respect of individuals in relation to the nation is a truism also in respect of nations in relation to humanity. If the international conduct of all countries were regulated by humanitarian motives, much of the wastage of men as well as of materials, which the competition attitude of today manifesting itself in the precautionary building and maintenance of useless armaments and of unnecessarily large troops which when fight mow down the flower of humanity belonging to their own as much as the adversary's country might be averted. The psychology of politicians which percolates gradually to all the ranks of the society today, alas, poisoning education and artificially obsessing the intercommunal outlook of those who would otherwise be human beings, teachers, for instance, and writers, scientists and philosophers, merchants and husbandmen, and pontiffs, whose professed mission is to promote peace, would, under the human regime we contemplate, be the psychology of peace. The whole humanity will prosper in the prosperity of individual nations, and vice versa, individual nations will prosper in the prosperity of whole community, humanity. Sequence of principles. The Arya Samaj, in its foregoing 5 principles, first fixes its ideal of humanitarianism and then traces in scientific succession of the means of its achievement. The Varnashrama system laid out in the last 2 principles, namely the classification of men and women according to their capacities and temperaments, and what is a practical realization of these, their occupations and activities, and the graduation of their lives into stages which will fit them in due course for their highest self fulfillment, is the most economic, the most wisely framed way of utilizing for others and promoting for their own welfare the potentialities of human beings. The daily duties. Number 1. Brahma Yajna. The same spirit marks the daily life of the Arya, to which 5 duties are attached as the indispensable daily round. The first great duty or Mahayajna is the duty of meditation on the Supreme Being with a view to adapting our little selves as far as our individual capacities admit of adaptation to His supreme virtues of wisdom, truth, justice, mercy, etc. A part of the same Mahayajna is a daily intelligent recital of portion of the Vedas. Number 2. Deva Yajna. The second great duty is called the Deva Yajna or Homa, in the course of which fire is ignited to the accompaniment of mantras from the Veda, and ghee and other odoriferous, nutritious and sugary substances are oblated to it. The most obvious object of the performance is to purge the atmosphere of all unhealthy impurities and charge it with gases and particles which will, besides disinfecting air, positively promote the physical well-being of men. A formula often repeated during this ritual, namely Idannamama. This oblation is not mine alone, but is meant for the benefit of whole humanity, is an index to the cosmopolitan mentality sought to be inculcated in the performer. The service of elders. The third great duty is termed Pitru Yajna, that is, the duty of feeding and otherwise serving elders. The Shastric conception of an Arya is of a member of a family. The youngsters, as they come of age and get married, were never thought of by the rishis as cutting themselves as under from the parental trunk. Having themselves been fed once, they are bound now to feed those who in their turn require their assistance in their old declining age. He whose parents and grandparents are not living is required to feed at his table a Brahmana, that is, one who is deeply learned and has devoted himself wholly to honorary service of mankind. This was the original Vedic teaching which the followers of Confucius in China and later day teachers in other countries construed into ancestor worship and oblation to manes of the dead. The Aryan religion concerns itself with the living. The feeding of the Brahmana, though vicarious in yajna, is not intended to appease the hunger of the dead in some other sphere, but to satisfy the filial sentiment in the heart and fulfill a material necessity of society. Number 4. Service of guests. And number 5. Feeding of animals. The fourth great duty is the Atithi Yajna, or the duty of serving unexpected visitors. Among them, the place of honor is assigned to sannyasis, who come to villages and towns in the course of their usual peregrinations, last though not least in the Bhut Yajna or the duty to feed and look after the welfare of subhuman creatures. The benefit of the charity is our own. What program of selfless charity could be more complete? These are daily duties, by neglecting to perform which one incurs sin. Equally remarkable, if not more so than the actual good that is done under the guise of this performance, is the mental outlook of the performer with which his daily performance of them imbues him. The recipients of the charity of every Arya Samajist are in the main men and women whose beneficent service tends to elevate whole mankind. And then he is taught to regard these gifts as elevating his own self, taking him every day nearer salvation. What better and closer reconciliation could there be of the individual and the national and broader still, the cosmopolitan ego? Continued.